I'm reminding everyone that we have a speaker and a moderator. Please do not interrupt, only when we open up in the conversation in brackets and we allow it. And another thing I want to tell you all, these get recorded. And just, think about how you want other people to listen to your questions also. Okay, shkoyach.
Does it also refers to me?
No.
It refers to me.
No, we sometimes use cynical language, not the professor, to myself, mainly.
Well said.
Okay, Shalom Aleichem. I'm very happy to be back here again. I really enjoyed learning together last week. And we continue where we stopped, and we said we're going to talk about the pulmus, the controversy.
Just one thing you should, because I think we need to be makir tov, and also I want to show you in action. This is a review that's writing the.
I got. Yeah, I got a shoe. To be honest, I didn't read it, but I was amazed from the fact that half an hour after the.
You'll be more amazed after you read it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay.
We want to go to deepen a little bit into Rav Kook's writing and the controversy that he had with the Ridbaz. But the truth is that if the Chazon Ish the controversy with Chazon Ish was to a certain extent more serious in a way that Chazon Ish, if you want to study what is the debate about today, so you have the corpus of Rav Kook, and you have the corpus of Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish left a deep and serious writings responding to every point of Rav Kook. Chazon Ish, and this is something that it's important to remember, because we all know, especially you that you are young people, you all know Chazon Ish, but we can call him Chazon Ish the second. Chazon Ish the second, or the second Chazon Ish, was the Chazon Ish after the Holocaust. Chazon Ish after the Holocaust was a Chazon Ish that took upon himself the rebuilding of the yeshiva world. But Chazon Ish, when he came to Eretz Israel in 1935, he didn't want to go to Yerushalayim. He refused to go to Yerushalayim. He didn't want to get involved in all the machlokot and everything. He wanted to Bnei Brak. Now, Bnei Brak is not what Bnei Brak is today. Bnei Brak back then was a moshava. It was an agricultural moshava. Everyone had 2 cows in his backyard, and people worked, and it wasn't a Haredi place. He went there, and very soon after his arrival, he became the rabbi of all the Haredi agricultural settlements. This is again something that is a little bit forgotten, but there was this whole group of settlements by Poalei Agudat Israel, the PAI. If you're aware of it, the PAI,
sure.
Which is, kibbutz mainly kibbutz Chafetz Chaim and Yesodot and all those places. They had questions, halachic questions, and they didn't know where to go to. Whom can they ask? The rabbis from the old Yishuv, they couldn't talk to them. The rabbis, the Zionist rabbi, they could also not talk to them, because so they wrote to Rabbi Grudzinski in Vilna, and Rabbi Grudzinski said, I'm here, I'm far, I don't understand your reality, and I'm old. You have a guy in Bnei Brak, Shayahu Karelitz. Go to him. That's how he was. That's how they discovered him. Rabbi Grudzinski told the Haredi settlers, agricultural settlers, to go, and he directed them in a complete different way than Rabbi Kook, to observe the Shemitah. By the way, later on I'll mention it, the controversy about Chaliva, about milking the cows on Shabbat, which is a very interesting controversy into itself. Chazon Ish was the person that actually, went ahead to get the timers to function the machines. This was very innovative. This was an innovative phenomenon. So this is how it started, and then later on things have changed. And So we will look into Rabbi Kook, and I've prepared here, you have the texts. The first question, now I want to another introductory comment. I study like not like a professor, but like a yeshiva man, which means from bottom up and not from bottom. So I start from the details, and after the details we can make the picture. I think it's more true, and then so the first questions and the most, or one of the very interesting questions is, how can I, that he was attacked by Ritbaz, how can I make a new hater, something new that didn't exist before? Now you know better than me that we spoke about Khatam Sofer's ideas last week. We didn't talk about Chadash Asur Min HaTorah, but you know better than me that the idea of innovations are scary at that moment of history of Halacha. Do I have the right to make an innovative hater? And he devotes writing to that. And this writing is very interesting because it has into it more than just a simple response, and you can learn something about the personality and about what's going on in the era. So I brought three texts about this question, and we'll read them, and we'll try to get out what does he think about it. Okay. Rabbi Yonatan, you said last time to read the Hebrew?
Yeah.
I read the Hebrew, okay?
Yeah.
And but I have some English below.
I think everybody understands.
Yeah? Okay. ומה שאנו סומכים על היתר השמיטה על ידי מחירה, ולא נמצא מעולם, ולא נראה שסמכו על זה חכמים הקדמונים, זיכרונם לברכה. It never existed before. בזמן בית שני, וכל ימי חכמי התלמוד הירושלמי, והיישוב הנמשך בארץ ישראל אחר כך בימים הראשונים.
Do we have evidence that Shemitah was observed then?
Absolutely. We, did you hear the questions? I mean, do we have any evidence that Shemitah was observed?
Let's say 1500 years ago, the Jews who lived in Israel.
1500 years ago, it's not a big question because how many Jews lived and how many Jews were agricultures. It wasn't the problem. But at the time of the temple, and even after the destruction, until Mered Bar Kokhba, until the Bar Kokhba revolution, we have documented Roman laws that exempt Jews from paying taxes.
The Gemara didn't say.
Why were Jews exempt from paying taxes? Because the regime recognized the fact that they are Shomrei Shemitah. We know very well if we read the I'll bring the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi is very interesting. I'll bring the Yerushalmi. But we know very well it's very interesting when you read the sources to try the halachic sources to get some historical events historical fact because you're asking me about the historical fact. Sometimes from the sources we get sense of the historical facts, and we hear. Let's say you remember the Tosefta that says Barishona. הגיע הזמן תאנים, you remember that? הגיע הזמן ענבים.
בקירים, שמן.
מה?
בקירים.
לא ביקורים, לא ביור שביעית, לא, בשמיטה. The בית הדין, the בית הדין would collect all the grapes, אוצר בית דין. It's already in the Tosefta. Does it have an historical background? Probably yes. Now, we also have sources, you see that the rabbis fight against people who don't observe the Shemitah. It probably has an historical background. Then it changes. We'll see it in a minute when we get to the Yerushalmi. It changes. Why did it change? Because the situation became very hard. The Romans stopped the laws that exempt Jews from taxes and so forth. We'll get to it. So far, Rabbi Kook is telling us, it's not... אין זה פלא, it's not surprising that I'm making something new. ושלוש סיבות בדבר. Okay? There are three reasons בדבר. סיבה אחת, that I bring here, I didn't bring all everything, עצם שינוי המנהג שבדורות הראשונים, שאז לא היה גדול כל כך הצורך לא נכנסו כל כך בהיתר הרמה, it's a mistake, it's not ביתר, it should be בהיתר הרמה, ואחר כך בדורות האחרונים, כשנתגבר ההכרח, החלו להתיר בזה ולהנהיג כך את הציבור, זה עניין רגיל מאוד. כן? ובחמץ גופה מצינו. והיינו שבכל מקום שלא היה הכרח גדול, לא רצו חכמי הדורות לפרסם היתר של הרמה, והיה בכלל כבוד אלוהים אסתר דבר. The word לפרסם, to publicize, is very interesting because he understands that basically everything do exist already inside. But the rabbis didn't want to publicize it. And if I remember well, this is what Tosfot says with regard to Pusbul. This is what Tosfot in Gittin, Daf Lamed Vav says, that it existed because Tosfot compares it with Torah Kohanim. It existed. The rabbis didn't want to publicize it. Why didn't want to publicize it? Because they didn't want all the people to circumvent the law. They wanted people to observe the law. What?
אין מגלים אלה לצנוע.
בדיוק, לא רוצה לגלות. אבל כשההכרח, when it comes, it's there, and when we must do it, מחייב להנהיג מפני הדחק, אז בוודאי מצווה להורות כאן. בדברים אלו וכיוצא בהם. כיוצא בזה, כדי להתיר מכשול מהנכשלים, עכשיו תשימו לב, להתיר מכשול מהנכשלים, ולהרוויח את הדחק הגדול של אותה שעה. ומשום כך, החלו גם כן גדולי הדורות להנהיג בפומבי את מחירת החמץ, כפי הנהוג, מאחר שנתברכו עסקי התעשיות ובתי החרושת באופנים גדולים. שאי אפשר היה בלא פרסום דרך מחירה. וכן גבי ענייננו. בימים הראשונים, כשמעמד היישוב היה בעיקרו על יסוד עבודת אדמה לאכילה, היה אפשר להנהיג קדושת שביעית בלא היתר של הפקעה. אבל בימינו שיסוד היישוב על ידי המסחר בפרי תבואות המושבות, וכשימנע מהלך המסחר תהרס כל פרנסתו ומעמדו גם הלהבא, so it will destroy not only what you have to eat for this year, but destroy your market, your clients, right? במצב כזה, doesn't say מותר להנהיג, אבל חובה להנהיג את היתר ההפקעה על ידי מחירה, על פי הסכמת החכמים בכל שמיטה. עד אשר ירחם השם על עמו וארצו, וישובו הימים הטובים, ויהיה אפשר גם מצד מהלך המסחר לשמור קדושת שביעית.
How would that be possible?
So this is very important. I'm coming to it. So the last, if I start from the end, it's very important for him to preserve the story, to preserve the ideal. The ideal is that we have a Shemitah. I don't say that the Shemitah is something not ideal. It's the ideal. And it's very important to preserve it as the ideal. We can't preserve it. How do we preserve it by the ideal? How we preserve this as an ideal? We have to make a new heter every sabbatical year. Every time it's a heter for this
Re-evaluation.
For this Shemitah. But if we go to what he said before, he's making a distinction between an economy that is self-sustained versus an economy that you sell to the international market, that you export. He says, when you have a self-sustained market, like in previous times, sure, absolutely. At 1910, when he writes it, the settler exported oranges, shkedim, almonds, wine. There was already the wineries of Rishon LeZion and Zichron Yaakov. They were exports. So and he said, if you lose your place in the market 1 year, you can't go back to it. So the whole idea of Shemitah, we have to rethink about how we do it. So this is kind of introduction which is something that you would expect, right? You would expect any rabbi that comes with something new. What will he say? The situation is different, right? You expect it. There's no so much into what he's saying. He's just putting his finger on what is the situation. He's not saying yet anything but the difference in the economic.
Circumstance.
In the economic. The
No,
economic
he's
is
saying
different.
something.
The only-
But I understand his view about Harama is he has a religious problem with Harama because he feels like you're marim da halacha, and he different than other, let's say, more someone that goes more with a legal approach maybe wouldn't have a problem because if it's legally, but he has a theological problem. And that's why this is his shita, not only here, and I remember in other places also, that you must be reevaluated because it's like a ra'at. This
Right.
is
So we'll read what he's saying about Arama, Rabbi Yonatan, soon we get into it. We have a whole paragraph, it's very interesting what he's saying. But if I want to follow what you said, the Hora'at Shah is not only with regard to Arama. His attitude to Arama is even more interesting. When he's saying lefarsem, which means you don't make it, it exists already. Because Rabbi Yonatan, every new interpretation, always the question is, what are we doing when we give a new interpretation? Do we dig?
Yeah.
Or do we build? Is the interpretator is an archaeologist who is digging to find what is what is the meaning that exists there, or is an architect that is building another floor,
Expanding it.
is expanding and giving a new interpretation. If you look on Chazal, I think the idea of the commentator or the interpretation as another floor is expanding. This is the governing idea. The rabbis want a new interpretation, and as a new interpretation is welcome as long as if you look at the new building with the new floor, looks natural. It looks as if this how it should have been. It doesn't look as if something very strange in this building. If you build another floor to the building and the building looks natural, it means the floor should have been there. It could. If you give a new interpretation, and when you read now the sugya with the new interpretation, it seems natural, as you walk naturally, nothing strange. You don't feel a breakthrough. That's a good interpretation.
How do you think
The
that
sugya and the
One
pusik.
second.
And there is another option of understanding what interpretation is to go back to the original meaning. What was the original meaning? To dig, like archaeologists, and we can bring many sources. There is this option in Chazal, but I don't think is the leading one. But here he goes to the digging, although he is not a digger, he's usually a builder. But with regard to Harama, he adopts here the Tosfot in Gittin, which speaks about Harama as something, because he wants to lead us to think about the fact that rabbis don't have to reveal everything they have in mind. Sometimes you have to keep things, because it's not only you, you have your community, and you have responsibility not only for the people, you have responsibility also for the Torah. You don't have to say everything. Sometimes things
Like
you
we
know
had the Nadvi the
exist.
last week.
What?
Like the Nadvi.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The Nodab Yehuda from last week. Exactly.
As
sorry.
to be honest, this point on the cook, this idea, I think the cook writes many times. The cook does it about Shabbos, about hiring non-Jewish people to finish a well on time. That is, say, about hire a chaliva b'Shabbos, and he always uses, and even on chumetz, this whole thing, this is a tshiva also that he writes. He writes very clearly that he believes that Haramaz, as if in the construction parable, an analogy would be that it's a construction entrance, and it's not made to be used.
Yeah.
It's made. And actually, every time you
Even
have
if he doesn't feel good with Haram, this I said.
but he writes all his chivas. He constantly writes this thing. You have to find a rabbi to say it, and a few times he says, "I won't say it." Find another rabbi to say it, and it's okay if another rabbi says it, because another rabbi, when he says it, means that it's an exception, and that's the rule. The rule has exceptions. It's like a waiter's entrance.
Okay, it's more complicated. I hope in an hour and a half when we finish you understand it better. You want to ask something?
Yeah, I just want to understand, in Chumetz, today even, we know there's a difference between, we make a difference, we say private Chumetz we don't sell, public Chumetz we sell. But it has to be to do with the Tzorech. Rav Kook never made that difference. Okay, the exporter will give the head to the one selling it. Like, if it looks to me that the only difference there is from before is the exporting, because the tzorech and the hunger was more at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, for sure.
It's
The
true.
need, the
It's
food,
true. It's
the
true.
calorie need.
That's why every tshuva, and he wrote dozens about Shemitah, he mentioned the export. Every tshuva, he brings it to the table.
Otherwise
What will be with exports?
But why did he make a global head that it was based on it? If it was based on the expert, why was he matter to the guy that is not exporting?
Okay. So of course, first of all, you can't make a distinction. Who is exporting, who is not exporting.
That's why I started by
market.
saying in Chumash we do make that difference today in Borough Park. We say, oh, if you have a store, you can sell real Chumash Gomer. Nobody sells Chumash like a loaf of bread in the freezer.
Okay.
So we live with the distinction. Okay, I just want to make a comment.
No. This is very important comment, and I want to answer you. I also want to answer you, and I'll take a minute to answer you. You live here in Borough Park, and this is exactly the difference between you and Rav Kook. He didn't live in Borough Park. He lived in a place where there were all kinds of. Rav Kook believed deeply in the idea of different levels of the law. You can be a more makpid, you can be less makpid, you can be. The role of the rabbi is to give a rule for everyone. He himself didn't eat from the Heter Mechira. That I'm quite sure. And he believed on Midat Chasidut. And he writes it again and again. Those who want to take upon themselves not to till the land in the Shemitah, in Eretz Israel, great, I hug them. But not everyone can. So,
Thank you.
Now I want...
Come to the difference of some surfer and no Vida, the whole thing.
What?
This
Exactly.
He went also on a journey to be Mechazik, the Shomer Shemitah. Rav Zonefeld together.
Yeah. What?
Okay.
Of course.
Yeah, well, that's another thing.
Thank you.
Then,
It was a very
I'm going to open again for questions.
I just want to answer.
Yeah, sure.
What's your name?
Shaya.
Shai.
About the chaliva. First of all, the milking cows. First of all, Rav Kook, it's true. Rav Kook, and he says this many times. En bedin sharia. If I will say everything is mutar, I'm not a rabbi. Nobody is going to listen to me anymore. You have to evaluate. You have to evaluate where do you give a heter, where you don't give a heter. You have bedin sharia, it doesn't work. He writes it. Now with milking the cows,
If you want to talk about it, you have to give a little bit of background.
okay, I'll give it. The milking cows comes 10 years later after the Shemitah, the controversy. There was a disease before the disease. The idea of the Zionist organizations that organized the settlements was that every settlement should have many
Lines of income.
not lots of income.
Lines.
They shouldn't rely on one way, on one thing, on one source. Every settlement should have few sources, all the sources. So every settlement had cows for milk. Every settlement had oranges. Okay, this was their economic idea. Now comes the problem of milking cows on Shabbat. The British, the Mandate authorities refused to let Arabs go into the settlement because there was some disease of the cows. Never mind the problem. And the rabbis decided, what can we do? How should we milk the cows on Shabbat? And Rabbi Kook there was the most machmir than anyone else. Rabbis were trying to find some solutions, and he refused. You milk the cow le'ibud.
on the
Now,
floor.
why so? And my opinion is, the way I understand it,
Please add a little bit. What is the problem?
Well, halachically,
Shabbos
sure.
halachically to do it, and what is the Metzia? Not everyone knows the background.
זה גמרא בדף צדיק ג'
But saying just explain a
milking
little
cows on Shabbat. You're not supposed to milk your cow on Shabbat.
bit. Why?
You say why.
You're
You're the rabbi.
You're
I'm
the
the...
professor. No.
No. It's not important to our.
Okay.
It's
Not
not
important,
important.
not important,
Eh,
okay.
Let's assume you're not
Okay,
supposed
no
to
problem.
milk
It's
cow
not
on
important, not
Shabbat.
important.
When you are a rabbi now in the new yishuv and you are asked, Can I milk the cow? Why? What does Rabbi Cook has in mind? And what is the difference between the Shemitah and milking cows? So first of all, Rabbi Cook is saying, how many times you milk cows a day? 2 times a day you milk a cow. Okay, if you want to be Shomer Shabbat, so you milk your cow the evening milking just before Shabbat, and the second evening milking just after Shabbat. You have a problem with once. So it's once a week, once out of 14. Once out of 14. And you lose the milk, you will survive. You will not collapse. Your milking economy will not collapse. You can survive it. Now, they come and tell him, but there are some settlers that are refusing to lose it. So what do you want from me? I have to give you a law, according to Rabbi Cook philosophy that we studied last week, I have to give you a law that if you want, you can survive with the law. You cannot survive with the law of Shemitah, but you can survive with the law that you don't milk the cow on Shabbat. So why do I have to give you a heter? That's the difference. It's not survivable if you don't kosher. That's one.
The cow has a
Tsar Baalei Chaim, you must milk the cow. Tsar Baalei Chaim
Onto the floor.
Deoraita. Tsar Baalei Chaim Deoraita. There is no question that you must milk the cow. There's no question that you must milk the cow. No question about it. The only question is, well, are you able to use the milk or not? That's the question, okay? Okay. But I want to be aware of something else. Tell me another huge difference between milking cows and Shemitah. I told you one difference. Tell me another difference. What?
The Aryeh and the Rabbanon.
What?
So the Aryeh
The right of
and
the
the
Rabbanan. But שמיטה זה דרבנן, וחליבה זה גם כן שאלה. שהגמרא לא בטוחה איזה מלאכה זה נכנס. But let's say it's the okay.
I think that by the milking the cow, you would need a heter every Shabbos. That's a problem.
Okay. A good point, yeah. Listen, guys.
Anything to do with the cow.
You live in, what do you say, you live in Williamsburg, right?
Yeah.
In Borough Park.
It's the same.
You don't go to see shows
Shave
in,
shines.
shows in what do you call it? Broadway. That's for sure. But you never saw Tuvia Cholev, Tuvia the milkman. So if you saw Tuvia the milkman, so what do you have in mind? If you come from Lithuania, we had the problem there. It's not a new problem. We've been milking cows forever.
Since they've been cows.
Exactly, we've been milking
It's
cows.
a new problem.
If we've been milking cows forever, and I'm going now to tell you a new way, it's much worse than going to a Shemitah. That's something that we have never done. We milked cows. We had solution in Lithuania. We can use what was the solution in Lithuania? What? Goy shel Shabbos. Goy shel Shabbos, right? Why can't we do it in Eretz Israel? Why can't we use an Arab?
You said the mandate didn't work.
Yeah, so he said go to the government, complain. But the principal idea is, he said, the Zionist organizations don't want Arab work. He calls it רעיונות שבדו מליבם. He identifies with Zionist settlements, but it doesn't mean that you have to bend down to any idea. The idea of Goy Shel Shabbat is part of halacha. Why can't we continue to use it as we did? To change the tradition is much harder and much more dangerous and much more difficult than to find a solution to something that is completely new.
He did do a good, even in changing tradition.
Of course, but he was more
Building
careful.
a well on
Of
Shabbos.
course, yeah.
non-Jewish workers.
שמן שמשומין, of course, אבל הוא היה יותר זהיר. And mind you, Goy Shel Shabbos, what is the היתר מכירה in שמיטה? לא זה Goy Shel Shabbos, you sell the land to a Goy. Okay? I mean, it's... Okay? Okay. With regard to your question in Rama, I promise to get to it. Okay. So let's go to the second and third paragraphs, and then I think we come to something, to important point in understanding what he thinks. Omnam, you see paragraph 2? Omnam, אבותינו, בימים הראשונים, שבאו יחידים לארץ ישראל, וכל ישעם וחפצם היה, does this, I think this one doesn't exist in English, I'm sorry. וכל ישעם וחפצם היה לבקש לרדוף אחרי המצוות התלויות בארץ. ולא רצו בזה רק להחמיר, כלומר אלא להחמיר. לכן קיימו באהבה כל אשר מצאו שיש בו מקום למידת חסידות, ולא היה הדבר קשה עליהם כל כך. כי עובדי אדומה מעטים היו אז, ואף שהיו רבים זהירים גם בפירות של נוכרים בקדושת שביעית, לא היה הדבר קשה עליהם כל כך, כי המסחר, רבי יוליש, we're going back to the מסחר, המסחר מעט היה בארץ, ולשמור קדושת שביעית במה שהיו לוקחים לאכילתם, אין זה דבר קשה. ואחר כך, כאשר נתרבו בימים האחרונים, אחרי גירוש ספרד, ובאו בשפע לארץ ישראל, אף על פי שלא הופיע עוד התחלת הישועה להאחז בעבודת אדמה. מכל מקום כבר קשתה עליהם הזהירות בשל נוכרים, ונמנו וגמרו בצפת בימי הבית יוסף, ויקימו עליהם בכל תוקף, זה צריך להיות וקיימו עליהם בכל תוקף, שלא תהיה קדושת שביעית בשל נוכרים. עכשיו, Rabbi Kook wants to bring two historical evidence that giant rabbis made changes in halacha in times of need. And he brings two historical examples. And the two historical examples that he brings are from the laws of Shemitah itself. This is the first historical example, and soon we'll read the third paragraph with the second historical example. But this historical example is a little bit problematic. Because he's making a historical story that I'm not sure that he's right. הבית יוסף קבע, רבי יוסף קארו, ruled, שאין קדושת שביעית בפירות של נוכרים. There's no קדושת שביעית בפירות של נוכרים. Why this is so important? Because if you don't accept this rule, the heter will not help you. It will not help. In order to promote the heter, you need to decide שאין קדושת שביעית בפירות של נוכרים. And this is according to Shulchan Aruch, and there's no problem to follow Shulchan Aruch. But he says that this was not the law in Eretz Israel before Rabbi Yosef Karo. How do you know? How does he know?
Mabit is claiming that.
But Mabit doesn't say
Claiming
that.
on the B'tz Yosef.
Yeah, but they have.
For you to be Mechadesh is Chiddush.
The Mabit says that.
The Minhag, I don't remember.
The Mabit says that this was the minhag.
No, maybe.
If you're right, I'm taking my words back.
Well,
but
I
maybe
think the fact
you're
that they
right.
made a cherem that you have to rely on this permit.
Why
the base
Yeah, it looks like he wanted to
Right, why
enforce
was
his
it so
head.
important? I think that's
It looks like it's a head.
that it was important to that
יכול
people
להיות,
should
יכול
do
להיות,
this.
יכול להיות. So if that's the case, so we really have a good historical example, maybe, but he brings an historical, he says, הבית יוסף חידש כדי שיוכלו לקנות מנוכרים. For his time, making this new law, it was enough. People could survive. Why? Because not many Jews were working the land. They were buying from the Arabs. So all you needed is to make a heter to buy from the Arabs. Now, it's interesting to look at his language. He says, לא התחילה ישועה להאחז בעבודת אדמה. The fact that Jews are tilling the land is a Yeshua for Rabbi Kook.
Because of his ideology.
That was his ideology, to come and work the land. To come and work
Any
the
other
land.
ideology?
What?
Any other ideology?
What do you mean?
Who doesn't think it's a Yeshua?
What, to work the land?
Who
When the
cares?
people, no, by MS. No, I'm asking a question.
You know.
I'm going on now.
the-
Chalta
Sochot
Gol.
Shover.
I'm not talking Chalta
Yeah, I'm
Gol. No, I'm saying just who doesn't think that it's not Yeshua that the Jews get back to the. I don't understand. what's
No, bavoides
Okay.
Adoma.
חקלאות?
Okay.
You're Mekayim it's at least words. No one can disagree with that. You're not Mekayim.
No, but it's high Yeshua. He's not saying.
Who says that?
Okay, so I want to go out of my way for 2 seconds. אני respond רבי יונתן. רבי יונתן, לכבודך, אני רוצה להגיד לך. There's a famous תשובה בסוכת שובר.
Avnei.
Avnei Nezer. There's a famous תשובה. Do you know the תשובה I'm talking about? Not about the hater. יש עוד תשובה? בבית יישוב ארץ ישראל.
Buying land.
And buying land and working. And the Zohar Shover says that if you work the land and you get this is Yeshuv Eretz Israel, that זה הופעת הקדוש ברוך הוא, זאת אומרת, יישוב ארץ ישראל, if you get the money from חוץ לארץ, what kind of יישוב ארץ ישראל it is, he says. But if you basically takes the Kabbalah concept, and by bringing the food out of the land of ארץ ישראל, this is יישוב ארץ ישראל, אתה מוריד את הישועה שלו.
From high tech, it's not good enough.
What?
Earning money from high tech, even though it's in Eretz Yisrael, it has to come from
He doesn't
the
say
land
the
itself.
land.
Okay.
He doesn't say the land.
No, he does.
He doesn't.
It does, it does. The
Of
Polish were very much
Of
into
course.
that.
אבל בא מנחס אלעזר, ומה הוא אומר? What does מנחס אלעזר say?
Chas v'chalila.
Impossible to believe that גאון וקדוש, like the Statehood said such things. To till the land, זה קדושה? To learn Torah is קדושה. To be an ikar, he said that's these words, I don't remember exactly. To be an ikar is farmer? This is יישוב ארץ ישראל?
To learn about farming is
Yes! And he says it's, we must say, says the Minchas Elazar, we must say that someone confused the pages. This is not what the Statehood says. Impossible to believe.
keep Shabbos, to learn about Shabbos.
So Rabbi Yonatan, he's gonna...
I just checked.
Shalom Purim, so to say.
Right?
Oh, aber der Teure gesagt,
The
du,
Minhag
es ist mehr
was
du,
like
wie
the
es damals
Basios. Not like him, but he still feels it right.
Okay, you see? Okay.
Them a bit.
Yeah.
What does Mabit say?
The minig is like the Basios.
Was like the B'Yosef.
Yeah. Even though.
Yeah.
Okay, now we get to the most interesting
Made a
part,
joke.
the third part of the third paragraph of Rav Kook. And in order to read this third paragraph of Rav Kook, I brought here two little paragraphs from Yerushalmi Dmai, Yerushalmi Ta'anit. At the end of last shiur, when we finished, Rabbi Yonatan sent me a little quote from Agorot Chatam Sofer, which I didn't know, and you remember that, right? And what was going there? We have a source we have a Talmudic source. לא זזו משם עד שעשו גמורים. If you are even a distinguished rabbi, so are the ages. Never heard of it. You studied the Fiyomi 10 times and you know it, but nobody knows this concept. לא זזו משם עד שעשו גמורים. I think לא זזו משם עד שעשו גויים גמורים. This is what the Gemara says according to Rava לגבי עשרת השבטים.
גם כותים.
עכשיו, why I'm going back to it? I think this is something very important to understand. The Gemara has, the Talmud, the rabbis have so many voices. Some voices are forgotten because they were not taken. They're not what we really think. Someone said it. But this is not our system. To make Jews, non-Jews, unheard of. Although it appears in the Gemara. All of a sudden, Chatam Sofer finds it. And all of a sudden, he makes something of it. And this is a very important concept. You preserve all the opinions because you might need them one day. You might need them.
The Mishnah and ABS.
משנה בעדויות. משנה בעדויות. פרק א', משנה ד'. נכון?
זה לא דת יחיד פה.
תצאי.
It's not a דת יחיד.
למה מזכירים דעת היחיד? שם, אז a few תשובות, there are few answers. The Mishnah gives few answers. One of the answers is שמא יבוא בדין, שמא יעמוד בדין אחר, ואין, I'm sorry,
ויראו דברי היחידים.
מה? ויראו דבריו. עכשיו, so, in one generation, there will come another court that will want to go back to use this opinion. Now, if you search today, it's very easy to search. If you will search in all the data, and you look how many times this Mishnah was quoted, not many times. But how many times the concept of that Mishnah was used, you can't understand really halachic thinking without understanding this concept.
Right.
the halacha could be alive for 2,000 years because you could go back.
לנעש חתיך
dormant, and then you
Exactly.
reignite
You
it.
have a dormant opinion. It's all of a sudden there. It's there. We don't.
Nobody notices.
Nobody
it.
notices it. All of a sudden, it's up. All of a sudden, it comes to the front. And this is what happens with this Yerushalmi in Dmai and Tanit. If you read this text,
Nobody quoted it.
nobody remembered it throughout the Middle Ages, because. Wait, first read it, and we'll see why nobody remembered it. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, התיר בית שאן. The Shemitah doesn't apply in בית שאן. Rabbi התיר כסרין, Kesaria. Shemitah doesn't apply in Kesaria. Rabbi התיר בית גוברין. Shemitah doesn't apply in גוברין. רבי התיר כפר צמח, רבי התיר לקח ירק במוצאי שביעית, והיו הכל מליזין עליו. Why would everyone make fun of Rabbi that he allowed to go to the market after Shvi'it and buy vegetables? Okay, tell us. So why?
Because you're not allowed to.
Why not?
It's from Shemitah.
If you go a day after Rosh Hashanah to the market and you buy cucumbers, where does it come from? Someone worked, did something that is not allowed on Shemitah, right? Otherwise, where does this cucumber? Rabbi, all of a sudden said you can go to the market and buy. והיו הכל מליזין עליו. They made fun of him. אוקיי? אמר להם, בואו ונתדיין. כתיב, וחיטת נחש הנחושת. נכון? על חזקיהו. חיטת נחש הנחושת, מן המדבר, נחש הנחושת של משה. שואל רבי, וכי לא עמד צדיק ממשה עד חזקיהו להעבירו? So Rabbi puts in the mouth of the people the obvious question of what could Chizkiah have in mind? How can I destroy it? It's Moshe Rabbeinu. Is it right to destroy it? If it's right, how come nobody did it before me? How come nobody did it before me? How come nobody said it before me? It's the most dangerous statement, because then you don't say anything. Because if it's something good, how come nobody said it before? How come nobody said it before? אמר להם רבי, אלא אותה עטרה הניח לו הקדוש ברוך הוא להתעטר בה. ואנו, העטרה הזאת הניח לנו הקדוש ברוך הוא להתעטר בה. Rabbi sees the leniencies that he make here in the Shemitah is the עטרה שהקדוש ברוך הוא הניח לו להתעטר בה.
נבואה.
עטרה is not נבואה.
No, it's like...
It's like something that...
Crown.
It's my crown. This is my crown. Would you think that Rabbi said... Did you think that Rabbi said that his crown is the leniencies that make with Shemitah? Why did he say it? Let's read another paragraph and then we'll talk about it. Tani.
It's not a play on the word.
What?
It's not a play on the words להתגדר בה. מקום הניח לו
להתגדר.
להתגדר. It's a play on that.
Yeah, it's play. תני, כשם שמתריעין, this is בתענית, כן? אז you have public prayers when there is no rain, right? Another question is, do we do public prayers for rain on a Shemitah? Who needs rain on the Shemitah? We don't work the land, right? It's a funny question. Of course you do it, but sometimes you ask a question because you want an answer. So, כשם שמתריעים עליהם בשאר ימי שבוע, כמו all the 6 years, כך מתריעים עליהם בשביעית. למה? מפני פרנסת אחרים. מהו מפני פרנסת אחרים? Two opinions. חבריה אמרי, מפני פרנסת גויים. רבי זעורה אמר, מפני פרנסת חשודים. So there are two Amoraim contradicting. Why do we have to pray for rain on Shemitah? One is saying for the Goyim. The other one is saying for the sinners. For the Jewish sinners. What? Unexpected, no? This is from Yerushalmi, מפורש. זה ירושלמי, unexpected. אוקיי? אומרת הגמרא, אומר הירושלמי, עתי רבי זעורה, שאמר מה? מפני פרנסת חשודים כרבי. רבי זעורה is like רבי. ודחבריה שאמרו פרנסת גויים, כרבי פנחס בן יאיר. מה זה רבי ורבי פנחס בן יאיר? דרבי זעורה כרבי, חד ספר, was one ספר. What is ספר? I don't know. A barber, but I think ספר in the Yerushalmi is a teacher, but I'm not sure. סופר, yeah. חד ספר, הווה חשיד על פירות שמיטתה. אייתונה גבי רבי. They brought him to רבי. אמר לו, רבי said, ומה יעביד עליבה? What do you want from him? בגין חייו הוא עבד. אוקיי, but he doesn't have anything to eat. בגין חייו הוא עבד. מה אתם רוצים ממנו? What do you want from his life? Leave him alone. ודחבריה כרבי פנחס בן יאיר, רבי באי למישרי שמיטתה. רבי רוצה להתיר את השמיטה. הוא רוצה להתיר למישרי שמיטתה. סלק רבי פנחס בן יאיר לגבי. he very much was against it. וידע רבי דלא מסכמה עימן, רבי gave up. Let's stop here for a second, before we turn the page. What did we see? Who was the main hero here in those two paragraphs? Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, he made the area where the Shemitah applies much smaller. He allowed sfichim. And eventually, by the mitre Shemitah, don't bother the Chashudim, pray for the Chashudim. And eventually, he wanted to למישרי שמיטתה. It might be that it went the opposite way.
After the Churban Beis Hamikdash.
Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, after the Churban, it's not only after the Churban. This is where I'm heading to. It's not only after the Churban.
We don't know.
It's after Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi.
Sure, we know.
Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi.
Also after.
Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi is after Mered Bar Kokhba.
Right, so.
He was born
After Mered Bar Kokhba. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi is around the end of 2nd century. It's after Mered Bar Kokhba. If we go back to the sources, where the Tosefta that we read, we know.
You got distracted when you wanted to say maybe it's the opposite.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Maybe it's the opposite. First he wanted to Mishra Shmitata, when he saw that the rabbis couldn't agree with him, so he shrinked it from all kind of ways, okay? He wanted to get rid of it at all, but it didn't work, so it's not, I'm not making it as a professor, you say I'm a pekoides. It's מפורש, כתוב בגמרא. Now what is the story here? What is the story? Let's think of this. I really think that one of the most distinguished persons we ever had, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. And what was his whole mission? Think about it. He lives in the end of the 2nd century. The end of the 2nd century. He sees, he feels the atmosphere. He sees that it's becoming after Mered Bar Kokhba, although he was already in good connection with the Romans and so forth. He feels that it's becoming very difficult to live in the land of Israel. And more people are living and immigrating to Babel. And he is trying to prevent it. And he understands that the Shemitah is one of the burdens. And he says, okay, if I have here saving the people in the land of Israel, or Shemitah, maybe this is what I should do. You know, Shemitah בזמן הזה מדרבנן. Who said it? רבי יהודה הנשיא. רבי יהודה הנשיא, נכון? Think about it, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, he constructed the Mishnah. We had one Sefer before that. Mishnah was Torah Shebe'al Peh. He decided to go against this major idea of Torah Shebe'al Peh and write the Torah. Why did he do it?
Also because of Gulios and so on.
People went to Babel, and he wanted that they will take the Torah to Eretz Israel with them to Babel.
Now you're taking a stand if you wrote to Torah Shop.
No, even exactly. Even if it was Be'al Peh, but it was a closed text. There's no question about it.
Right.
So you say he worked always out of this
need.
fear that Klal Yisrael is
His
losing.
whole mission was to save Torah Eretz Israel, to save the Torah of Eretz Israel.
Professor, the problem with this theory is that really the theory what you're saying is the Rambam saying this theory and the Gama to Mishnah Torah because he wants to represent himself that he is also in such a kind of situation.
Okay.
But we know that historically it's not true, not not the Rambam's account, and not Rabbi Danasi, because the Rabbi Danasi was very good at times that they had very good relationships. Now you have to say, but he knew there's not. It's interesting a little bit. It doesn't work out so historically.
It works out very well because the yeshivas in Bovel start right after
Rabbi
you
Yonatan, I want to tell you that it's very difficult to me to disagree with you, but I disagree with you. I'll tell you why. With respect. I tell you why. I tell you why. I tell you why, Rabbi Yonatan. Because it's true that Rabbi was brilliant enough to build a very good relationship with the Romans. It's true. But he was also brilliant enough to understand that not everything depends on him. He felt the atmosphere. He felt where it's going. And if וכך
nicht nur wegen Bakorf, was damals sein.
And the fact that the Talmud Bavli is constructed around Mishnat Eretz Israel is we should all thank Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi.
And he succeeded.
And he succeeded. And he preserved for us something else, Rabbi Yonatan. Not only Torah Eretz Israel, but also the Hebrew. Sfat Eretz Israel. The Rambam says,
If not for Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, we would have had also a different Mishnah Bavli.
It could be. We don't know.
we don't know, but יש ברייתות בבליות, אבל היה משהו אחר לגמרי. היה משהו אחר לגמרי.
There would have been such a separation between Babylonian
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
Jews from
The
Israel.
achievement of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi is beyond understanding.
Maybe
One person taking an extreme decision and making huge difference. And the idea of Shemitah goes together with it. Now, as I said, those two sources, if you go, I promise you, that if you go to read the sources about Shemitah throughout the Middle Ages, you will not find even one quote of those two Yerushalmis, as far as I looked for. They don't exist. Because if we look at the Shemitah as something so that represents us, so important to us, that represents our society and our values, what do we got to do with Rabbi that wanted to get rid of it? But now comes Rav Kook. Yes.
You know what's called it a lot? That the Mikdash, the Charbas Mikdash was because of not holding Shemitah.
Okay.
That's the quote.
That's the quote. And you know,
First Mikdash.
and you know what? One of the scholars, Gedalia Alon, I don't know if you heard about him. It was very, like 80 years ago.
If you want to say a few words about him, people should know.
Gedalia Alon. He
learned in the yeshivas.
הוא למד בישיבות ליטא,
Yeah.
and then he became professor in the Hebrew University for...
Not Menachem Alon.
Not Menachem Elon. No.
Alon?
No.
לא קשור.
That's Menachem Elon, and that's Gedalia Alon. He died very young, and basically he didn't finish his PhD even, but he was something special. And Gedalia Alon showed that all the sources that you talk about, that the rabbis talk badly about people who don't observe the Shemitah, right? They say, למה חרב בית המקדש? כל מצוות שנתנו נפשם עליהם, נתקיימו בידם, נכון? שבת וברית מילה מסרו נפשם עליהם, נתקיימו בידם. שמיטה שלא זה, לא נתקיימה בידם. And you can bring so many sources, even the Tosefta that we brought, or Otzar Bedin. Gedalia Alon showed that all those sources are from prior to Mered Bar Kokhba. Because prior to Mered Bar Kokhba, it was still possible to observe the Shemitah. But after Mered Bar Kokhba, it became impossible, and the rabbis understood it. And mainly, more than anyone else, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi understood it. And he tells the people, תתפללו למען החשודים. Isn't that amazing? תתפללו בשביל החשודים. Okay, now comes Rav Kook. And Rav Kook says as follows. Where are we? Yeah, number 3, in page 6. ירושלמי דמאי ותענית, רבי באי לי מישרא שמיטתא, סליג רבי פנחס בן עיר לגבי. אמר לי, וידע רב וכולי וכולי, I skipped it, וידע רבי דלת ומסכמה עימה. says רבי קוק. רצונו של רבי להתיר שביעית הוא כמו שפרשו המפרשים. מפני שלדעתו שביעית בזמן הזה מדרבנן. אבל אם היו חכמי הדור חולקים על רבי והיו סבורים ששביעית בזמן הזה מן התורה, איך היה עולה על דעתו כלל להתיר משהו איסור דאורייתא? So this is something obvious that the whole heter is built on the idea that on the opinion that שמיטה בזמן הזה מדרבנן.
He's the only one that says that is
Who?
built on this Rav Kook.
לא, לא,
It's
לא.
built on
גם-
Rashi Yerushalmi?
גם החזון איש מסכים ששמיטה בזמן הזה דרבנן.
No, I'm asking, he's the first one that says this is the Pshat in Yerushalmi because it's Darabanan? Meaning to say, I could maybe understand even if it's Deraita, maybe you could be Mate.
Yeah,
But
okay.
because of
But-
different circumstances on the Mikra.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm asking, who
I don't know if the first one, but
Okay.
I don't know, but you can't ignore the fact, Rabbi Yonatan, that Rabbi is the one that's saying that שמיטה מדרבנן.
בסדר.
You cannot ignore the fact. Okay. And by the way, גם החזון איש אומר ששמיטה בזמן הזה מדרבנן. But חזון איש takes us to the other way. He says, אם שמיטה בזמן הזה מדרבנן, סל מכירת אדמה בארץ ישראל to a goy זה מדאורייתא. לא תכונם. So you want to avoid איסור דרבנן, you pass in איסור דאורייתא. ברח מן הזאב ונתקל בארי. פגש בארי. What's the point? כן? עכשיו, אז אלה הדברים מוכיחים שהיה פשוט באמת שהשביעית בזמן הזה דרבנן. ורבי רצה להקל יותר, מפני שנמצא לדעתו היתר מפורש בתורה. שימו לב, מה אומר רב קוק? למה הרבי רצה להתיר? מפני שהיתר מפורש בתורה, ומפני הדחק, ומפני תיקון חשודים. Rabbi couldn't do a bigger favor to Rabbi Kook than saying, pray for the Chashudim. But this is exactly the situation Rabbi Kook is standing in. And
מה הכוונה היתר מפורש בתורה?
מה?
מה הכוונה היתר מפורש בתורה?
שזה מדרבנן, הכוונה, שזה מדרבנן. כן.
I don't understand what it's saying. מפני חשודם רוצה להימנס להטה
רצה
לגמרי?
להימנות,
לא ציים,
למנות, מוני וגמרי, נימני וגמרי.
והדלאי, נינו וגמרו, בדיוק. והדבר תלוי באמת בחכמי הדור, וכיוון שלא הסכימה דעתו של רב פנחס בן יאיר, כמו שראינו, as we saw, שהיה גדול הדור וקדוש עליון, ראה שמן השמיים הוא שלא יותר דין שביעית. We'll go a little further and then we'll talk about it. עוד שם בירושלמי תענית, כשם שמתרים עליהם בשער ימי שבוע, כך מתרים השביעית. ונראה מזה שפרנסת חשודים, היינו החשודים על הזריעה ועבודת הארץ. כמו פרנסת אקום. היינו שיגדלו על ידי הגשמים הפירות הנזרעים מאת האקום, שהרי הם זורעים בוודאי. אלא שלרבי הכל בחד המחתא. כיוון דסבר, כיוון דסבר,
that's what cooks yourself.
in a minute you'll explain me. וכיוון דסבר שבאמת היה ראוי להתיר מפני הדחק, רבי חשב, לימד זכות על העוברים מפני דוחקם, והצריך גם להתפלל עליהם, שיצליחו למצוא מחייתם, אף על פי שהם עושים באיסור. You might not agree, you might agree with me. What I sense here, and I brought only parts of it, but what I sense here, that Rabbi Kook, seeing himself as, I don't know if you have this expression in English, he's standing in the shoes of Rabbi. He finds himself in the same situation. He says Rabbi was in that situation. Saving the Jewish settlement in Eretz Israel was depends on the Shemitah. And that's why he did all these heterim. And I'm also in the same situation. He was the chief rabbi of the land. I'm the chief rabbi of the land.
He's a mamshek.
I see myself, I'm in the same situation. I have chashudim. He had chashudim. What he did, I can do. This is what I sense here. That's why all of a sudden, all the heterim of Rabbi were brought מתהום הנשייה. All of a sudden, like Khatam Sofer last week, all of a sudden he has a how to rely his ideology, Rav Kook the same. He has someone to rely his ideology on.
Kook niet te laten, we gaan niet
What? Of course.
And then
Let's
also,
go down
also
around the
we see
table.
the way you
A second,
explain.
multi-mock a second. We'll go around the table for ask questions. Shai is looking straight. No? Okay, next. Time? What? You said it.
Also, another thing we see the way you presented Rebbe, that he had a value of being in Eretz Yisrael. He saw that as a value on itself, even though it would. The other position would be, I shouldn't be over on the Sufik the Rabuna in Eretz Yisrael, rather stay in Chutz La'aretz to save myself from
It's not
that
a question from
chashash.
staying. It's a question from going away. It's different than staying. We're talking about the
Or
yeshiva that's still there.
coming, meaning
Not the
it
same
doesn't
thing.
have coming to live in Eretz Yisrael on the chashash. You're going to be over
It's not coming
a
to live.
mini kal.
No, but we're not talking about coming to living. We're
Okay,
talking
leaving.
about
I
different.
want to make sure. I want to make sure I understand your question or
Anyway,
comment.
Chazal is mit Amir and Nachem Yeshiva Tzor. What did they say? Chazal say that the Rabuna mit. I don't understand. It's not a chiddush from Rav Kook. They say this thing that even Issa the Rabuna shouldn't
But Chazal
cannot
brought him out
leave.
here.
Chazal say the Amir and Nachem was mit to buy Shabbos the right.
Jeder is in Rabuna kommt mit der Killer inside, and Shenach Shabbos, Bittel and...
Can you explain me the debate here?
No.
I'm
He
interested.
was trying to say that
I also want to
he
learn
was trying to add that the chiddush from Halach from Rav Kook is to say that we could be makel in Isur Rabbanan.
Judah the Prince.
Rebbe. So Sufik Isur Rabbanan. The man Yeshiva
Not the
Tzor.
man, I think you're wrong.
La Fika, let's say from Shittot. I didn't say we're not going to over even a Sufik Isur to come up to. I'm saying it's not. It's not the same thing of being and this thing to be Yeshiva Tzor's Doche Isur Rabbanan. We have precedents in the Gemara. Meaning enough to write down.
Okay, now
But do you have a reason to connect it to Eretz Yisrael? Qua Eretz Yisrael? What's the Yeshiva Yehudi? All of a sudden, everyone has to leave. There's going to be a lot of death and economic.
Shemitah is connected to Eretz Yisrael.
Sure, but I mean, Rebbe's interest in making
keep
people
the Jews
able
living
to
there.
live there was not necessarily because of
Ideology-
Eretz Yisrael.
ideological.
Of course it is. They could go
That's
to
the
Babel.
point.
It was very
It's
good.
not
there.
easy for communities to pick up
Apparently
and
it was,
just
but-
leave. They have their businesses here.
well, you see that
it's
on a single basis.
No, I
It was mistake.
High Aliva means the individual. He
Apparently
is,
life was
like, on
better
your
there.
side, High Aliva. He's not talking about the general, he's talking about the Yid.
At the time of Rabbi, situation in Babel was very good. It later on became bad, but at that time, people just left, and it wasn't
Good, bad,
It
good.
wasn't so difficult.
Good
All you
and
needed
bad.
is a good comment.
Good
Compared to the
Maybe
Romans.
Greek.
It wasn't.
Okay.
Rabbi wanted
Yeah.
to save the Galil. He wanted to save the Galil as a Jewish place. It was very important to him.
It was a value to him.
Yes. ולא סתם, it's not במקרה שהוא
Final question.
כתב את המשנה, מסכת כל סדר קודשים וטהרות, that they don't belong to Babel. He wanted to preserve it. It was very important to him, and he found it difficult to preserve it. Jews don't live here.
Is Rav Kook explaining that has Rav Pichas ben Yehuda, since when are you paskening min Hashemayim, especially in Ha'isad Rabunam?
איפה מן
Is he
השמיים?
going on? He says that since Rav Pichas ben Yehuda was Balmater, he's Rush min Hashemayim. He's going on, he's explaining this.
He's asking you,
What's going to do it?
Like, especially since it's a Rabunam, it means it's...
You saw the Shetzis.
Interesting comment.
Okay, another
Interesting
comment.
comment.
That
It's Rabbi
maybe-
Pinchas, but I think what has in mind here that because it's Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, that he was known as a
See this,
Kadosh,
is the Rav Pichas ben Yehuda,
that's why Rav Kook says probably people followed him because it was Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair and they thought it's min hashamayim. Okay, he's a mysticist. That's what he's saying. Otherwise, but I don't know.
I think what he's saying is now the mystic is the matter.
Once against me.
Rav Kook himself is the mystic.
Right. I think it goes
Although
back.
he doesn't play here as a mystic.
No.
We didn't see any
I think it goes back to his point that the samchut of the Rabbanim is very critical in order to put this into effect.
Right.
And that's created by this kind of consensus, and the big chassid rabbi, if he doesn't agree, that means we don't have that
Yes.
kind of authority. So
Yes.
that's what he's really saying,
Yes.
probably.
I just want to say one thing that
רגע, אבל קודם, סליחה,
Okay,
הוא היה
sure,
באמצע,
sure.
so.
Is there a way we just learned Pash Mishpatim, so we see that there are rabbis that were by the opinion that the Torah, you can interpret later the Torah, the whole it's not exactly what the Torah, what's written in the Torah Shabbat Pei is like, as the Rambam is saying, it's not exactly
He's
what.
referring to the beginning where that we started the two ways to interpret digging and building.
You think it's only because Rabbi was thinking to the Rabbanim because that he says that there's no Shemitah, or it could be even if it was via the eyes.
Maar gevraagd
Some way.
Yeah.
This is the kasha.
I want
I asked before.
I want to answer the question.
Dependent רבי שמיטת זמן זה דרבנן. כמו שאני טענתי, שיכול להיות שרבי סובר ככה גם אם זה דרייס. יכול להיות.
I don't know.
I reminded.
Just want to say one
But the
thing.
fact is that Rabbi made an effort.
Rabbi himself holds.
Rabbi made an effort to claim that the Shemitah is midrabanan. It's a fact. It's a fact, and it's not just out of because purely.
Just want to add one thing because Tzudik added it and brought back the siach about the two ways of the interpretation, if it's digging or building. Just know that we should appreciate this is famously Professor Adrei's way to give over to his students. There's two ways. It's not written anywhere. This is his
interpretation.
His metaphor, his mashal. He always uses digging and this. This is we give credit. We should appreciate it. No, it's a nice analogy.
I never heard it before.
It's a nice analogy how to put it. Yeah. And I always remember that when I was once heard the shir of Menashe Klein, Baal Mishneh Halachot, that he said by the shiur that wasn't mean asmachta. So he said, like the Ritva says, that the Torah, not the Rambam, that just Zikaron, but just Melitzat Ashir. No, it's only the Torah, really He'ira Torah, that Chachomim have the way. So he says it's like someone builds a building and make sure that if they want to make an extension, that should be able to, there should be the foundation enough strong. It's very similar to your idea. To that,
We need more examples.
just wanted to shine a light on. We
I would
should
love to see more
appreciate.
examples.
It's
You
a
need
matter
examples of digging
Yeah, that
versus.
can help me a lot. Yes.
Okay, I first of all, I think I will bring next example, few examples for try
לא,
to
אתה
bring.
לא מסכים איתי שזה
לא,
זה
ברור,
המשל
ברור,
שלך.
כן, כן, לא, but he wants more examples. I will bring the next class, next time, or next meeting, I will bring some try to bring some sources. But I think that if you take this metaphor and think about, have it in mind when you study
Gemura.
the Daf Yomi. You
Yeah.
study, and you think about how they give an interpretation, and you see that this interpretation comes. Where does it come from? It doesn't come from digging.
Fit it in.
Most times, it doesn't come from digging. It comes from expanding, putting a. We had yesterday Parashat. You mentioned Parashat Mishpatim. And you mentioned my class in university. So in university, when I try to teach my students what is Mishnah, I want to explain what is Mishnah. So I give them homework to read the two psukim in Parashat Mishpatim and the two psukim in Parashat Kitetze on Hashavat Aveda. Okay. 4 psukim, 5 psukim altogether. How many? And then I tell them that they have to read 2 chapters in Masechet Bava Metzia. Okay, there are 2 chapters about Hashavat Aveda. And I tell them, how do you move from this to this? How do you do this? What? It's a group of intellectuals. It's a group. Okay, what does it mean?
They use these tools to expand.
It's a group of intellectuals who sit together and want to take the ideas they have. What do we have here? The ideas of Hashavat Aveda.
Someone is gonna
And how do I make from it a whole law of Hashavat Aveda?
Without
Always
saying
someone is
it's
gonna
new.
argue. So I'm saying it's just that I'm saying I don't argue with it, but someone's gonna argue. No, everything is they're revealing through this midat. We reveal really things that we're not mechadash anything. We're just megale. It's not a this thing that you see from few psukim. We have 2 chapters.
I don't know who's going to say it. Not nobody that listens to the Rav Shir.
This I agree.
But I want to tell you the real difference between digging and expanding or building, why it is so important. Because if you dig, you have one truth. You find it. It's there. If you build, you can have different buildings.
You can add.
You can have different visions. We can live together and study together for 2,000 years because we are building and not digging. And because, okay, that's the way you
Somebody
imagine
makes
the
an
loop.
extension like this, somebody makes an extension
yeah.
like
I put on the Kedem group
Had we had
Yerushalmi.
a philosophy of full truth, absolute one truth, it was everything, we couldn't live
that. It
together.
would be a bloodbath.
Exactly.
I put on the Kedem group we have the Yerushalmi. Rabbi Yanai says, "Ili nitne toire chatiche lohoise l'regla."
Exactly.
You can't dig for the truth.
אילו הייתה התורה חתוכה, לא הייתה לה רגל עמידה.
You can't have halacha.
But
Rabbi
digging,
Yanai, no?
Yeah.
This is Rabbi Yanai.
but digging
Thank you.
is also
Would collapse on you.
What's the truth? Digging is also like expanding because he said this is the truth.
No, it's going to be machlokot. But
Dig-
someone is not
Go
getting
to the
truth.
source.
Yeah,
So
you're,
it's really true.
Shirley, you think of digging tunnels. When we say digging, we're not digging tunnels. We're
gone
digging
directly
for the
down.
diamond. With that one diamond, the truth.
50
One
carat.
diamond?
Yeah,
Or ruby?
Not,
50
yeah. Not tunnels. That diamond that you're looking for.
Okay.
If you, I'd say now one more sentence, okay? If you read Flavius, okay, Josephus, if you read Josephus Milchamot HaYehudim, okay, the wars of the Jews that led to the destruction of the temple, of the Beit HaMikdash. And you try to understand the atmosphere there. Everyone was had galut. Everyone had a voice. Everyone had absolute truth. So it led to
Civil war.
fights, civil war. And you think about it, that how many? 20 years later, Yochanan ben Zakkai comes from that period. Moves. They build a Beit Midrash of Yavne with an absolute, complete, different philosophy. The opposite. You say this, I say that. We put both opinions in the sources. We preserve them. We learn both of them. We have to understand both of them. If you are a Yehuda, yeah.
Now you're going to tell over the...
If you are a Yehuda and you give a reasoning to your opinion, it's not enough. You have to say, how do you understand Rav Meir? And why you don't accept him? What?
I'll send you later something very interesting.
Thank you,
I'll
thank
be
you.
saying.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Likes of the group?
Okay, the one more sentence I want to say about it is, I want to take Rabbi Kook to a larger level and to put this into his philosophy and read a few more texts but for now I would say that for Rabbi Kook, and maybe we will agree that this is a philosophy of Halakha, not a philosophy of Rabbi Kook. For Rabbi Kook, the problem is not with the reality. The problem is with the halakha. If the halakha cannot face the reality, cannot respond to the reality, so something wrong with the halakha. Now, what does it mean, something wrong with the halakha? We have authority. We can work on it, right? We are builders. We can build. But this is our duty. We must do that. Otherwise, we leave the halakha not effective. Irrelevant. Okay? And that's a major theme of his halachic thinking. That the reality is not the problem. The problem is the halakha and the responsibility of a posek to make halakha relevant to the reality. Okay. עכשיו, the next source I brought is just, איך אומרים, anecdote, shoot משפט כהן, you see number 4? I read the third paragraph. אתה, אם באמת גדול הדחק, עד שתלוי בזה חורבן היישוב, the settlements will might collapse, נראה שיש להתיר במילתא דרבנן למכור, על פי דרך המכירה של חמץ הנהוגה במקום הדחק, ולסמוך שהישמעאלים אינם עובדי עבודה זרה, אין בזה איסור של חנייה בקרקע. עכשיו, ובזה אז לקושיית המחמירים, מפני מה לא עשו את ההרמה בימי חז"ל? מפני שבימיהם היה קשה למצוא נוכרי שאינו עובד עבודה זרה. Now, listen. Why this is amazing? This paragraph he wrote when he was still in Lithuania, before he came to Eretz Israel. We saw before what he wrote when he was in Eretz Israel. Until now, we saw that he said, I have an authority to make, yes, the rabbis did make את תר הרמה, אבל זאת ההתרה שהניחו לי להתתר. רבי יהודה הנשיא said, ההתרה של חזקיהו הייתה שהוא שבר את הנחש, right? ההתרה שלי, my crown is that I make a תר on the shmita. And we said that Rabbi Kook sees himself that also this is his atara, this is his crown, that he's moving ahead with the heter. And now here, all of a sudden, he is something completely different in the paragraph I wrote before he came to Eretz Israel. He thinks like a traditional posek that find distinctions. Nebech, the Yidden in Eretz Israel in the time of Bar Kokhba didn't have Muslims. Nebech. But today, thank God, we have Muslims. And Muslims are not of the Avodah Zarah. And there is no Isser of Lo Techonem. That's the way he would find reasoning before he came to Eretz Israel. After being here for a few years, it's more than he didn't need it. He changed his way of thinking. He wanted to think. He developed a different way of thinking. This is a new reality, a new planet, a new situation. We have to think.
Developed a sense of responsibility.
A sense of responsibility and a sense of thinking of halacha, power, thinking of halacha in a bigger concepts.
Could you explain a little bit more?
Not chilukim, traditional halachic chilukim.
But you also see
What did he saw here? What
did he see?
Okay.
What was the new way of looking at it?
We want to hear the professor, everybody.
I'll say it in brief and maybe later. I want to get to it because I have another. I said last week that Rabbi Kook is a product of 19th century Europe. Okay, there is conflict. Many Jews are living Shmirat Mitzvot, living the community, assimilating, and reform movement. He is a product of that very tense period. And he comes to Eretz Israel, and he sees the secular Jews, but he sees something different, that he needs to give to it a meaning. He is not willing just, okay, he wants to give a meaning. He said, these are spiritual powers. They have a special power.
See the Chalutzim.
Chalutzim, they're not just, they're not the Reformed Jews that I met in Germany. They are something else. I have to give it a meaning. And this is what he's doing. He gives it a meaning. And we're going to see what is the meaning that he is giving. How much time do I have? Half hour? אני מתלבט. Okay, I'll go briefly and I want to go back to the point where we've been now. He wants to give it a meaning. In the letters that I have here that maybe we don't have time to read it, is correspondence with the Ritbaz. And the Ritbaz is telling him, let's travel together to Europe. Why travel to Europe, Rabbi Yonatan?
To get that.
No, Rabbi Ritbaz is not
For
willing.
money, to get
Money! So there are two kinds of Jewish solutions, right? One is use a goy, and one use the money.
Schick de broche kan Amerika.
Why exactly? Why? What will they do with the money? they'll give the money to the Shomrei Shmita. Rabbi Adrei Baz writes to Rav Kook, let's travel together to Paris and get donations from good Jews for the agricultures who will observe the Shemitah. And what is the response of Rabbi Kook?
No way.
No, he doesn't say no way.
No?
He said, yes, I'm coming with you, under one condition. What is the condition?
You give a head.
Exactly. Before we jump on the boat, you sign the heter,
And then we'll go.
and then we go.
But then we don't need the money.
No, we do.
No, we do.
We do.
For this
We do.
For the
We do. For the
Like
Machmirim.
today, like today.
For the
With
Machmirim.
Tavisias Bechusi in the
For the
in the
Machmirim.
moment.
Why does he now he tells Red Baz, why do I insist that you sign the heter? Because we can't collect money for everyone. We can't. It's not possible. We can't collect money for those who sell for export oranges. Oranges. We can't. We have to be responsible for everyone. If you are willing to be together with me on the responsibility for everyone,
This is
then
in the letter?
That is in the letter. This is in the letter.
Powerful.
If you want to be together with me, responsible to everyone, then I am responsible. I go together with you, responsible for the Machmirim.
And self-understood, he didn't agree.
What?
The Rebbe didn't agree.
And didn't agree, of course. Didn't agree. Okay? תראו. Okay, so you like it, so you want me to read it?
No, we saw. You said it in this letter.
חלילה לנו להעלים עין מזה ולהניח לישראל שיבואו על השביעית בלא שום צדק. אוקיי. אז אני רוצה, I want to summarize and say in one sentence and say from a legal perspective, from a philosophy of law perspective, how to understand his way of thinking. If I'm a judge, okay, if I'm a judge, or I'm a legislator, let's assume that I'm a legislator and make a law. I have to ask myself, who are the addressees of this law, right? And let's say, I say that if everyone observes the law cannot be observed. But you know what? Half of the people don't observe the law anyway. So this law is good enough for half of the people. Is this a law? No.
It's a misasayfer.
So Rabbi Kook says, if I don't make a heter, so the halacha is a halacha that most of the tzibur cannot observe. Why it is a law? Why it is a law? It's a law only because people are not observant. Can this be a law?
The question is only if who goes in the tzibur.
Okay, b'diuk. So in order not to make a heter, you need to do what, Rabbi Yonatan? אין אחריותם על העניין.
And the Ritbaz followed the Chassam Sofer. He wasn't from the same school of thought.
He wasn't from the same school of thought. He came from Volozhin. But you see, despite the fact that the Eastern European, they didn't like this idea. He's not willing to take in account the settlers who are not observant. He said, let's collect money for the Machmirim. What about the rest? I don't know.
He had the same problem in Chicago. I don't know if you've read.
He was a year in Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah. And what happened there?
It ended up being a huge mess.
Interesting.
It seemed like, I mean, that parsha has to be studied. Exactly, if you want to understand the personality of the Ritbaz. The question is if it's a coherent, if you can build up a coherent mahalach on his state of mind and his worldview. I'm not so sure you can.
There's definitely a coherent knowledge that the Ritbaz raised a tremendous amount of money for the Jewish people. For a lot of
I'm not saying that. I'm talking about his hashkofa. If it was Blois Kanuas, or if it had the more.
Yeah. And by the way, the Chazon Ish didn't sit back on his couch and said, okay, no heter. The Chazon Ish digged very seriously into Ilchot Shemitah to find ways to help the settlers, to find ways for heterim. But it was obvious that all the heterim that he found were good enough for the small group of Haredi agricultures.
What does it mean?
What do you mean?
They didn't help.
על חקלאות, על מצע מים.
All type of flowers.
All kind of things that you can do, small initiatives. Small initiatives cannot run the country.
I want to point out
Kibbutz Chafetz Chaim did flowers.
Of course.
Flowers.
Vegetables even.
I want to point out the meta moment of this conversation. You're assuming that the Chazon Ish and the Rav Kook have an outside decision, and they are digging the tunnel to finding the way to connect to the source. Everybody here hears it because they say Rav Kook had an important agenda because he was a rabbi to the land. Now he's going out to find the heter. He doesn't go like he said. He started the shir and saying, "I'm going to start from the small details, then go back to the big picture."
And now he's talking the big picture.
But this Rabbunim, they looking for their psak after making a decision. Side the Chazon Ish and side the...
No question about it.
That's amazing.
No question about
That's
it.
amazing.
No, but the Chazon Ish is the same thing because he doesn't care about the rest in some
But
type of way.
that's amazing.
Only cares about the firma, but for the firma is going to give innovative attire. Not like the Rizviz, no. Not like the Rizviz is going to say, okay, let's get the money.
But all of them made the ruling outside of looking at the sources.
So I should know welches gewonnen Faden. It's very hard to say if it's a Madresh Yotzer or...
I'm not saying that what the truth is. I'm saying how the professor presents it, and he's saying...
I don't think you're trying to say that's totally outside. This is the way they look at everything. It's quite hard to say what's the Beitzah Shenolad.
No. There's no question that the starting point of Rabbi Kook was not, okay, let's read the solution and we'll see what the outcome is. It's the opposite. The starting point is we have to find a solution, and now let's see how we do it.
But it's very...
The Chazon Ish had the same aleph also, electric and everything.
You know the Chazon Ish?
There's a quote in the book. You don't make it Muslim yet.
We have to find
We have to find the Isser.
But it's just the view of the person with his gash with the text.
Ja, dat zit alleen gezocht.
Their view that they
De
have.
Chazon Ish had me gezocht. De Welt meint ze is mitte, de Welt meint dat ze oetse met aftreffen de herte. Ze is mitte met aftreffen de
He's
Isser.
going to explain what he thinks the difference.
That's it's a lazy says it from.
Quote from Chazon Ish.
Quote from Chazon Ish in Yiddish. He says bezelush.
Rabbi Yoelish, I didn't. Unfortunately, I couldn't follow your Yiddish. Maybe I could understand if it was a Galicianer accent. But
the Chazon Ish said it when it came by electric. He said the world thinks that really it's user, and maybe we should find a heter, right? The truth is, he says in Yiddish, it's a laser quotes him.
You talk about electricity.
Electricity. The truth is that it's mitter, and we ought to find the isser.
Right. This is with electricity.
But that's his the way he approaches it.
Let him say what he wants to say.
This is not the case of Shemitah.
How do you see the difference with Chazon Ish?
Okay. With electricity is something completely different. Something different. With electricity, you can't compare Chazon Ish to Rav Kook. Maybe you should compare Chazon Ish to Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. They asked when they complained to Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach about all these machines that they make with gram minus that you can use on Shabbat. So Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said it's fine. And so they asked him. They told him one day they'll come with a car that you can drive on Shabbat. And what did Chazon Ish say? What did Reb Shlomo Zalman said? Tiferes Auto. Okay? And there is a whole correspondence between Reb Shlomo Zalman and Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish said he had a vision that if we do all these techniques, we lose the atmosphere on Shabbat. And Reb Shlomo Zalman said this is nothing to do with halacha. But when we come to Shemitah, it is different. So you're right that with electricity, Chazon Ish the starting point was not allowed. And then see how we say that it's not allowed.
And
the starting point of Rabbi Kook in Shemitah was we must find an heter. Now let's see. And the Chazon Ish starting point in Shemitah was we must find the heter for the Haredi settlers.
Wow.
So no Haredim were doing large scale industry? Is that the whole difference?
What?
There were no Haredim who were doing large scale industry. Exporting.
And if they do,
then what?
if they do, I want to hear listen, guys. this is very important. This is very important because you ask me, so what? There is no Haredim that do export? Of course there are. But export is not per settlement. The entire yeshuv, the export will continue. I can withdraw for this year and join next year. In other words, what Rabbi Kook is saying, you are, to the other poskim, you are transforming the secular settlers to be your goyim shel Shabbat.
That's what the Chazon Ish was doing.
In a matter of fact.
By the way,
As a matter of fact. As a matter of fact. But
That's
the philosophy,
really that's
and
really,
don't, I want to say, I want to be very honest. This is a philosophy of halakha, and this is not something. This is a philosophy that I am responsible of the halakha, and the halakha talks only to people that talks to it. It doesn't talk. It's like what I said last week: is you come with the clean hands or not. I talk only to people of the halakha. Rav Kook said, no, there's no such a thing.
Chief Rabbi.
But I don't think- I don't
Not
think-
because he's a chief rabbi. Because of this is way of thinking, he became a chief rabbi. It goes the other way.
Yeah. He wouldn't take that
It's the
position.
side of
Yeah.
Ivy and you only care for
It goes the other way. Now I want to go back to what I said.
but I don't think so that it's correct to say that how would we continue the export through the Chilonim, I don't think that this is the thing that he realized. Let's say if it wouldn't work out, the export through the Chilonim, I think he will still not be matir if he could save the Charedim. I'm not sure, because you want to say, let's say today, they're going to say, we need the Charedim Tzava. You're going to say, no, Charedim don't need, because the Chilonim are going to go. But if we're going to tell you the Chilonim are not going to go if the Charedim don't go, so you could claim, the way that you phrased it, it's going to be that.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure that the Chazon Ish realized because the export is going to go on with the Chilonim. Maybe he doesn't care at all about
Chazon Ish אמר במפורש, that if you are going to starve, don't observe the Shemitah. No, במפורש. You don't need a heter.
You don't need the Chazon Ish for that.
Okay.
If you starve.
No, but he said don't go on a heter.
But you see
Don't
that?
go
You can just
You see
walk
that?
in.
Bekich nefesh.
But Rebbe
We know
was
we
trying
don't
to
need
find
Chazon Ish. I'm
out.
just saying
Chazon
you
Ish.
added something that the Chazon Ish knew that the export is going to continue. I'm not sure.
not
You don't see
defined.
anywhere the Chazon Ish will say that.
Just by the
He
way-
only said the Chayetom Aleinu ve'en achiyut lanu
He
sheyishuv
won't say that. He will
Yes,
not
yes,
say
yes.
that. I agree. But I ask you the question: how come he didn't say that? How come he didn't ask himself, what about the export? Because
so maybe the answer
then
is
apply.
Haredi
Yeah.
export. What about the Haredi
His-
export? Haredi export.
his
Was there
Hasidim-
no one Haredi
his
export? That was
Hasidim-
the- So he was saying.
By the way, if you
It
want
could be.
to
I didn't say
understand
that
the
because of any
personality,
Chayyut. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So there are few people here.
The
You
Chazon
need
Ish-
the conversation.
the Chazon Ish, just to understand the
I have
personality of the Chazon Ish, he didn't let.
You read Benny Brown before you're giving your opinion?
I have a better source. I was there before Benny Brown.
No.
He didn't allow the almanot of the Second World War to remarry. Reb Chaskel Bretler's mother never remarried because the Chazon Ish told her not to remarry, and there's other almunas. I'm just saying to hear the personality. Nicht eibigdach und treffen hätte.
Okay, it was an inappropriate comment. Thank you.
I'm not.
Second.
I don't think it's
I'm
inappropriate.
not. I don't
We
want.
don't know the circumstances of
Yeah,
the story.
yeah,
Stam,
okay.
Heidelberg,
Benny Brown and Yogi.
Say that.
Benny Brown.
Benny Van outsources.
Start in a book. Start in a
Outsource.
book.
Yeah, because if you come with the whole book behind you,
The whole book.
you're coming with you're coming with a family member story, basically.
Chaskel Bretler.
Twice two.
The Chazon Ish-
You can't say that.
Aryeh.
But in a way, it is.
Chazon- You guys
It's,
don't.
in a way, it is. He said, these are my clients. This is my community. I have to give them a response. They are not going. My community are not going to starve in the Shemitah. I have solution for them. Do I have solution for everyone? They don't come to ask. What will I do if all the settlers will become religious? What will I do, says Chazon Ish? We'll sink them. We'll probably have to find more Eterim. But right now,
But it could be.
right now,
We know
why
what
do
we
we,
could do.
why do we
1
have
second, we know.
to reduce the halakha?
We know what the Haredi approach is. We know what the Haredi approach is. What will we do if we all will be? The approaches we will bring from Chitz Arabs going, because this is really what the Moses says. And how we're gonna do? We're gonna have a secular system. We're gonna just make sure that now you're asking what's gonna be when everything will be Haredi. We'll have to bring going to.
This reminds me of the question.
Yeah,
According
because this is really what the Chamois
according to
answers.
Kant-
We're gonna go לפי דרם. It's gonna be a second assistant. In the השפעת התורה. No.
אוקיי, כן, בסדר, אבל זה כבר...
It reminds me of the philosophical discussion, and according to Kant, that holds the categorical imperative. What happens if you live between a lot of liars? If you can, if you still have to. The categorical imperative is everybody joins into it. That's the big question. You know what I mean? It's like, are you going to be Haredi until there's not Haredi? So you need a not Haredi to be Haredi.
The second Rebbe of Bel, the second Rebbe of Bel, Reb Shir said that a shtetl that doesn't have a choirik all, a Chal Shabbos needs to import one because you need the kanuas, you need it. But the question, the Chazon Ish clearly says that he would not be mater, but rather pikich nefesh, like on a local. And he's not in Siachas to the Yerushalmi that the Rebbe did want to be mater officially.
With regard to the Heder Mechira, Chazon Ish says explicitly that if it comes to a pikuach nefesh, just work the land and don't do a Heder.
But he doesn't have the problem of the Yerushalmi.
I don't know what he does with it, but...
I'm just wondering about the Chazonish. So the fact that Chazonish said, like some Sefer said, that Lozazim Misham also going Gemir, but he has the Tinnik Shenishbe had. So
right.
How does this
okay.
do?
Okay, maybe we should devote more time to this. I don't have the. Right. It's another question. It's another.
No, just enjoying.
אוקיי, אני רוצה עכשיו, אוקיי, יש לנו קצת זמן, אבל give me a few more minutes, אוקיי? תראו, המכתב, on page 8, we have the last letter of Rabbi Kook. Now, it's very late now, and I really want to do two texts, so we'll do it, and then we'll have discussion if we have time. So one text is the last letter.
No questioning till the end.
The last letter of Rav Kook to the Ritbaz. This is already 3 years after the sabbatical. The Shemitah was in Taf Reish Ayin, and the correspondence between them went for a few years until basically the Ritbaz died all of a sudden. And so this is the last letter, and very important letter, which basically is saying what we have said until now. He's saying as follows, ומה שכתב מר לתמוע עליי, you Ritbaz wrote to be surprised on me, במה שאני מקרב את הכל, גם את פושעי ישראל. Why do I care about פושעי ישראל? ומצא בזה, I skip, ומצא בזה סתירה לברכת המינים. מה שאנו מתפללים לעוקרם ולשוברם. We say every 3 times a day, ולמינים ולמלשינים אל תהי תקווה. This is רבן גמליאל. Against the Rishonim of his time. So why do you care about them? הנה רבן גמליאל לא נעקר. ואז רב קוק, I will say it and then I will read only few sentences. אומר הרב קוק, to build up a Jew, you have two, איך אומרים, מרכיבים, two components.
two קומות.
הסגולה,
two ingredients.
הסגולה והבחירה. מה זה הסגולה? האחד הוא הסגולה. כלומר, טבע הקדושה. שבנשמת ישראל. You are born as a Jew. You have some קדושה in you. והשני הוא עניין הבחירה. שזה תלוי במעשה הטוב. What did you choose to do? Did you choose to do מעשים טובים or not? עכשיו הוא אומר, החלק של הסגולה הוא הרבה באין ארוך יותר מהחלק של הבחירה. אלא שברית סקרותה היא שהסגולה הפנימית לא תתגלה בזמן הזה, כי אם לפי אותה המידה שהבחירה מסייעת את גילויה. וכל עיקרה עסקית וכל עיקרה של ברית אבות, שאיננו פוסק אפילו כשתמה זכות אבות, הוא בא מצד כוח הסגולה. מה זה הרעיון של זכות אבות? זה הסגולה. We have something that we were born with. Never mind what we do. ובעקבות דמשיחא מתגבר ביותר כוח הסגולה, שהוא תוכן זוכר חסדי אבות, מביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. אמנם, לפעמים, מתגבר חושך כזה שמפסיק את תופעת הסגולה. אבל זה אי אפשר כי אם במי שבא למידה להיות חס וחלילה שונא את ישראל. כמו מי? כמו המלשינים, וכמו אולי הנוצרים, אבל יכול להיות שאפילו כמו some of the Jews in Europe that we have met.
The Bund.
אבל בדורנו נתרבו נשמות רבות, שאף על פי שהן שפלות מאוד בעניין הבחירה, ועל כן הם נגועים במעשים רעים ורבים, ובדעות רעות מאוד השם ישמרנו, בכל מקום אור הסגולה מאיר בהם, ועל כן הם מחבבים מאוד את כללות ישראל, כלל ישראל, וחושקים בארץ ישראל, ובכמה דברים טובים ויקרים מהמידות שהם באים מסגולת ישראל. What does he refer to here? כמה מידות הטובות?
Non-religious in Eretz Yisrael.
כן, לא, אבל הוא אומר שיש להם כמה דברים טובים ויקרים מהמידות.
מסירת נפש, להגן על הארץ,
מסירות
להגן על
נפש.
האחים.
אז זה הוא אמר קודם. הוא אמר, מחבבים את הארץ, מחבבים את כלל ישראל,
לחלוצים.
וחוץ מזה, third,
סוציאליים,
חושקים
מאוד
בארץ,
סוציאליים, לא קפיטליסטים, לא קפיטליסטים.
בדיוק, הם לא קפיטליסטים,
כן.
הם סוציאליים, יש להם חוש אחריות חברתי, יש להם קופת חולים, יש להם הסתדרות עובדים, they care about each other, they support each other. מאיפה זה בא? Where does it come from? מסגולת ישראל. מסגולת ישראל. So how can you say that these Jews are ברכת המינים? ברכת המינים is only to those who hate the Jews. Not to Jews, those who come to ארץ ישראל. תראו עוד פעם. מחבבים מאוד את כללות ישראל וחושקים בארץ ישראל. כן? אני חושב שזה משפט מפתח. I think this is a very important introduction to the way thinking. עכשיו, so basically what Rabbi Kook is saying, there is a religious significance. There is a religious significance that has implication on halacha to someone that ideologically come to build Eretz Israel for Am Israel. Think about or the time that he is talking, okay? The time that Rabbi Kook is talking here, 2010. 1910. In the 30 years or 50 years between 1860 and 1915, 2 million Jews moved from Eastern Europe to America. 2 million Jews. 2 million. 2 million.
To America.
To America.
To Europe. Eastern Europe.
Texas, where? New York?
All over.
Texas, but Las Vegas a few.
I'm gonna Google this.
Yes, 2 million
Google
Jews.
it, it's in time. Google it.
About 500,000 Jews moved to all other places, to South America, to Canada, to South Africa, not to Western Europe. No, I'm saying from Europe. Mostly from Eastern Europe.
1860?
About 500,000 moved to other places. How many came to Eretz Israel? 50,000. Small percentage. What did they have here in Eretz Israel? They had gold.
Nothing.
They had someone waiting for them. They came. Why did they come? The love of Eretz Israel. So says Rav Kook, how can you treat them? You want to treat them as a minim ולמלשינים על תהי תקווה? You compare that? You can't compare it. No comparison. עכשיו, כאן יש משהו הרבה... One minute, I want to read another few lines and then because my time is almost over and then we'll ask. I want to read in page, I skip the Arama that I promised you. If you give me time, I'll say it. I want to skip to page 10. I want to skip to page... שלושה, לוי קופר. שלושה כוחות, אתם רואים? page 10. אורות רב קוק. Now, I want to tell you something. This book, Rabbi Kook published 1920 after he came back from Europe. You know that Rabbi Kook was stuck in Europe through the First World War.
Swiss. In England.
2 years in Switzerland, 2 years in England. He actually came to Europe to the convention of Agudat Israel in 1914. The convention didn't happen because the war started. He got stuck in Switzerland and then they became the rabbi of Machzikei Hadas in London. And from London, he came to Israel. In London, he got this idea of a chief rabbi because there is a chief rabbi and he said, now that the British are governing the land of
They should do
Israel,
the same
the
thing
chief
there.
rabbi should be in London, chief rabbi should be in Yerushalayim. Right? Yeah, of course. So he published this book as soon as he came to Eretz Israel in 1920, and his son told him, don't publish it. It's too radical. They're going to kill you.
They did.
They're going to kill you.
Reb Tzvi Yehuda?
Yeah,
Reb Tzvi Yehuda told him, don't publish it.
It's known that he had a censor.
Don't
Rav Kook had it.
don't publish it. And he published it, and this book created so much hatred towards him. And I think that this paragraph is the paragraph. I think this is the paragraph, and it connects to the letter to the Ritbaz that we have just seen, and it will make the picture understandable. Says Rabbi Kook as follows. Well, let's try to read it. 3 כוחות מתאבקים במחננו. 3 powers are battling in our camp. כעת, now, in our times. המלחמה ביניהם, this fight, this war, ניכרת היא ביותר בארץ ישראל. It's most heavy in ארץ ישראל. אבל פעולתם היא פעולה נמשכת מחיי האומה. It's in our nation in general. Not only that, שורשיהם קבועים בתוך ההכרה החודרת במרחבי רוח האדם. So these 3 powers basically appears among each of our souls. We
Consciousness.
what? Yes.
הכרה, consciousness.
זה לא רק that 3 camps. It's inside each one of us. Okay? אומללים נהיה, it will be very sad, אם את 3 הכוחות האלו, אני מדלג על המשפט שבסוגריים, נניח בפיזורם. If we let these 3 powers to be each one in his camp. What is he's looking for what? Harmonizing.
Right.
Okay? 3 הכוחות. איפה זה? נניח במרידתם זה על זה ובהחלקם אחד למחנה העומד. מי הם 3 הכוחות? הקודש, האומה, האנושיות. הקודש, האומה, קודש, התורה, האומה, the nation, עם ישראל, האנושיות. What is humanity?
The whole world.
The whole
in the
world.
19th century.
Caring, exactly. Caring.
Humanism.
Humanism. אלה 3 התביעות העיקריות שהחיים כולם שלנו ושל כל אדם באיזושהי צורה תהיה מורכבות מהם. זאת אומרת, איך שהן מניותיה של ההרכבה, what are the percentage, אם חלק אחד מאלה תופס מקום יותר או מקום פחות, אצל איזה יחיד או אצל איזה סיבור. אבל לא נמצא ולא נוכל למצוא שום צורה קבועה של חיים אנושיים שלא תהיה מורכבת מ3. ההתמזגות הדרושה של 3 התביעות הללו, הגדולות הללו, מוכרחת לבוא בכל קבוצה שיש לה תקווה של חיים עתידיים. Is it okay or I need to translate?
No, beautiful.
Okay.
It would be good if you translate
Okay, I don't
it.
Can you
understand the
translate?
What is it?
Okay, I said.
Yeah.
It will.
Yeah, but
We must find a way within each one of ourselves
Harmonize this whole
and
thing.
within the group of us
right.
to harmonize and to give room to each one of these 3 powers. Now think of how to say, dangerous, critical what he's saying. It's unacceptable. If you are a rabbi and you read it, you faint.
Why?
Why? Okay, let's one more sentence and then you continue. 3 הסיעות הרשמיות הללו הם האחת האורתודוקסית, do you see what I read? האורתודוקסית, כמו שרגילים לקרוא אותה, הנושאת את דגל הקודש, טוענת באומץ ובקנאה ובמרירות בעד התורה. השנייה זה הלאומיות החדשה, הציונות, הלוחמת בעד כל דבר שהנטייה הלאומית שואפת אליו, שכוללת בקרבה הרבה מהטבעיות התאורה של נטיית האומה. So, desire for to build a nation. והשלישית היא ליברלית, דגל ההשכלה. So יואל, why it is so dangerous? הקדושה is not perfect when it's done by its own.
That's the חידוש.
It's not only חידוש, it's a radical חידוש. Hakdusha is not perfect when it stands alone.
In other words, he's
You
saying,
need to find the right balance.
in other words, he's saying that there's outside of the Kedusha of the Torah, there's other values that we can't dismiss. And this is
We
the
can't
biggest
dismiss,
problem.
but we need to find how to harmonize it.
But let's say
The right powers. What he's saying is like כמו הכוכבים, you know? If you
Yeah.
take one, everything fails.
The opposition
They
to
hold each
Kodesh,
other.
There's no other value chitz from Kodesh.
yeah, but let's say the Shniya is a
Du Gashmias, du Tikkun HaChevres, du
Yeah.
Gashmias.
It's all part of Kodesh.
So within
That's all part of Kodesh.
Kodesh.
Here he's saying separating it.
Others would say within Kodesh there's Gashmias, there's you have
But
to do
you-
things.
no,
Social life that you
No
have
era of
to.
liberalism.
No,
But
no
Gashmios-
era of
Kodesh.
humanity.
Gashmios is something completely
nothing to do.
different.
Nothing
Something
to do with
completely
Yeah, but
different.
Professor,
You have to
the
eat. What can you do? Yeah,
But
you have to eat. But here we're talking about values. We're talking about
no
values.
value of
liberalism.
Liberalism
No,
and
humanism.
nationalism
How
is
can you
our
say
values.
that? Like you're making that this is whole shit that was so controversial. So I want to get like dig in a drop. Shniya is ha'uma, right? Zionism. Why would you say Zionism is not kodesh according
say-
to Rav Kook?
You say.
No, everybody agrees that Zionism is part of the Jewish history.
Okay.
Of course, mitzvah Yishuv Yisrael. You can say that, there's out for it.
But this is not
that's
what the
Torah. That's kodesh. To the people that are Zionists, that's kodesh. Same thing. The same thing. The third. To the people that have Torah, they have values of liberalism. They see it in the Torah. I see liberalism in the Torah. I see feminism in the Torah.
Okay, so you're already kooknik.
He's post-modern.
You are already kooknik in such a way.
I'm Chazalnik.
No, okay, perfect. Perfect.
Did you finish inside what you wanted?
No, I didn't finish.
So that's
Let me
conclude. Now you finish and answer the question.
Probably Rav himself is saying it in other places. that this
I
is
want,
part of
I want,
Kodesh. It's a very basic
Yoelish,
idea.
I want to say what's going on here and why this is, what is the chidush, what's going on here. Rabbi Kook came to Eretz Israel in 1904 and he saw the Chalutzim, okay? People, they work in Shabbat, they don't eat kosher, they live completely secular life.
Right.
And he saw there a spiritual power. He said
Right.
there is something very serious there
Yes.
that we can't ignore. We can't just look at them as heretics. We can't. There is something very serious, very deep there, that we should find a way how to take some of it into
Harmonize
ourselves
together.
and how to give them part of it. We should find a way. Someone here mentioned before his trip to the Moshavot with Rav Sonnenfeld, and he saw this as something very strong that comes from the Sgula Shel Am Yisrael, and he said we must take from it something. We can't stand as we are. It's not Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. It's not that. Of course, you can be Yehudi Charedi and go. No, it's the care. It's the willing to devote so much to care about all the people.
To bring them back in.
To bring them back.
Without the
to
kodesh.
be initiative. It's something he saw.
Not Kiro.
He
No, not
saw
Kiro.
a religious value.
He sees in Lemuyut a value. He sees in humanity a value, liberalism a value. And then are people going to argue there's no other values outside of Kodesh?
I don't think that Rav Kook at all in here had this whole conversation that it's a philosophical thing about
That's religious.
Kodesh.
And it's
In
Arbet
this
Land.
context, he's not addressing if the other two have a part of Kodesh. When he speaks about Kodesh here, this is a thing that he's about.
Kodesh
I'm saying
means
this whole
that
conversation is like this whole conversation that it's a philosophical question. Rav is saying that there's something outside of Kodesh.
exactly what it's saying here.
I know that it sounds that way. But
Blijkbaar, het Pinchas bij jou. Het Pinchas bij jou is dan
that's also part of Kodesh.
No, what you want to say is the cook didn't have the need to get this. So the guy is Schmitter. You could say, but this is the way that he's
What I'm saying is that Cook enough will in other places say that comes from Kodesh. Also, that's not a philosophical thing that Cook is saying here. Cook is not here addressing if nationalism
Shirley,
is
ze think
separate
verkeerd. Shirley, ze think verkeerd. Mr.
He's not saying
Weber,
that.
ze
The
think
fact
verkeerd.
is there are three areas
De mensen, we zoeken, we kennen ze aan
The same people
Nora Locha, zij zijn de
and
Christen.
each three of them have values And we have to can't let anybody win. We have to bring it together.
Street
We daven die hele Tag, was war
It's not a theological point.
in each one of them there is a spiritual power. When he looks at the Chalutzim, he sees spiritual
We have to
people.
go back a lot.
He sees בדיוק.
When he sees a Kanaim,
I wanna highlight-
he sees something
No,
else.
but I want to highlight something. It would be the same,
doesn't
because
see the
Yoel is
school
going there. It would be the same, like Chassidus Rebbe saying that in every Avaida there's a mitzvah. He's not here addressing the theological point if there is Kodesh and Chol. He's seeing that there's three great things. That's it. He's saying. He's just
By the
saying
way, what you've just said is certainly this is his background. And he's using the
Right,
concept.
so he's not
using
really
the
saying it in the
He's using the concept.
נכון. But there he's saying Lachziram V'Tshiva. That's also very. He went far away from the Lachziram V'Tshiva till seeing that they. Chapter 6.
No, but that's
where he's talking to the
But this is not. Yes. Yeah, it's a form. Yes.
Das gegangen am Mutzer Serit Chabad Council.
You know, wir weinig
Shema Yisrael.
wir weinig Films gewinnen zu geben.
I think he to
You're not to be honest.
people are not
Nein, du machst ja die Wasbombe. You're not accurate.
to
just not accurate.
one to Uganda,
Ze
one to somebody else.
Ze gaan 2-3 miljoen gerijden. Niet gerijden, 2-3 miljoen.
He says they have something
That they don't have.
that we are missing. That we are missing. And this something is a something spiritual, something that's part of Judaism.
I don't admit it. If his Hegelism shita, he thinks that it's not even possible to come from us. These awakening of these type of movements, which is so meyusham that it can't come. But I just want to say, this is one of the places. This is one of the places that. One second. It's one of the places we're doing. This is one of the places where you use the whole thing. Because if he could have said the whole thing without giving this whole bush or looks at it, because it's so simple. A lot of the theorem that he gave, like he said, if he could say it in a different way, that's the biggest ashkofa that they had such antagonism to the way that he put it down. Because he doesn't have to say that. Doesn't have to say Sibula. You can say Itami Chaton Velo Choitzin. There's a lot of languages to use.
But he
invokes languages. Exactly.
What's important to him? He wants to understand.
When did the Talmidim of Rav Kook totally lost the third one? The liberality is out. When did that happen?
We want to finish the Shai, so please.
Maybe Rav Amita or andere.
I don't know how to conclude. There's so many things. You mentioned the Hegelian way, right? You just mentioned. You know, there is a scholars debate whether Rav Kook was read Hegel, was Hegelian or not. I don't think you need to read Hegelian to be Hegel. You can. It's enough to study Talmud.
Whoa, that's a good line.
It's a dialectic way of thinking, and to Rav Kook, Shlemut can never be achieved from one power. It has. You have to negotiate with other values. You have to negotiate. You have to negotiate with the Leumiyut. You have to negotiate with the universality, with the liberalism.
You're going to ask you to say, oh, he told us a lot of times already about Lessing.
מה? כן.
Yeah. This is the...
מה, על אלו ואלו?
כן.
איך לחבר את זה, אבל...
לא, כי זה אותה נקודה.
נכון, זו אותה נקודה, אבל אני חושב שפה, זו אותה נקודה, שזה לא לסינג, זה מנדלסון. זה מנדלסון, שאמר שהמשפט הכי חשוב, the most important sentence in the Talmud, is אלו ואלו דברי אלוקים חיים. And the philosophers around me, he said, like Lessing, even his friend Lessing.
Doesn't say like that.
He doesn't mention, the pedant philosophers, they say that we want to give equal rights to the Jews, we want to embrace the Jews, but they have to give up the Talmud. Why they have to give up the Talmud? Because the Talmud has this nonsense, unacceptable statement saying "Elu v'elu divrei Elokim," which is philosophically cannot be explained, that contradicting opinions.
That's because they didn't have William James yet.
And Mendelssohn says they don't. I hope there will come a day that they will understand that this is the most important sentence in the Talmud and they will adopt it. Now, Rabbi Kook, in a way, is going this way, but I'm saying to the point that to the moment in history where he stands, he sees that his generation, in terms of Judaism, the Jewish people of the generation, they have unique powers that we have neglected in our tradition throughout the years in Europe. We have neglected the powers of Laumiyut and of liberality. We have neglected it, and we have to clear and reclaim it. And sometimes, in order to reclaim it, people have to go outside. They have to go all the way, and now come back and dialect and negotiate where to meet and how much to give to each power. But we have to negotiate with these powers, because it's very radical, because it says where Judaism stands now, it's problematic. We have neglected important parts. You're right, it's part, but we neglected important parts, and we have powers that went out in order to reclaim those parts and bring them back. And
it's strong belief that these powers can't be developed from the inside, and it has to develop on the outside.
Yes,
it has to be through a shever that after the shvira, then we could connect it, that will harmonize it to connect it again.
Yes, and you know what? And you know what is leaving aside, this specific example, but sometimes it's true. I mean, sometimes you have to break the tools. You have to go outside. Think about, this is maybe controversial, but you needed to break the idea that we sit in the Galut and wait for the Messiah. To break this concept, you needed what? Someone that will come from the outside. What? You needed someone from the outside. This is a fact. This is the fact.
The train.
I don't think it's he says that it has to
I know.
be a smasgus.
I know, but Jonathan wanted me to bring this because we spoke about it once. But I agree. It's not exactly the thing. It's not exactly the thing. What he's saying that is that there are important powers that we have neglected, and we are pgumim. We are pgumim without them, and we must reclaim them into our tradition, into our culture, into our being.
Right.
He can't think that they should fight between them. The other side would be that these three should have their fight going on.
Not a fight, but a
balance,
attention. How to find the right balance? A debate. A debate. Where is the right balance?
Thank you.